Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this month's monthly meeting for the Astronomical Society of Victoria. I'm Mark, and I will be speaking tonight. But before we do that, I'll bring in our president, Steve Paddy, and welcome, Steve, to the April stream.
Thank you very much, Mark. Welcome, everyone. Just a few announcements before we kick off the night's events. We have received just recently $30,000 of the $50,000 grant from the state government for the All Abilities Observatory. That's come through and is in our bank account. Now we have to accelerate the work to get the rest of it. Section meetings, they've started at the lodge, but some of the sections have not yet returned there. So please check with the section director before you go to the lodge for a section meeting. Next month, we'll see a new ASV council, and that will be revealed in the May AGM. So a little bit more about the AGM at the end of the meeting. So that's it for me. So Mark, if we could bring up the list of new members, please.
Okay, so this is our list of new members. We have 42 this month.
Okay, that's a nice total. If you're on the list and you're a new member, welcome to the society. We look forward to meeting with you face to face once the restrictions are fully being removed. In the meantime, enjoy the podcast that we're getting. The sections are meeting back at the lodge in Burwood, so please make yourself available. We have a lot of facilities. Our dark sky site, which is open to all. And if you're a new person, please go to the deep sky section meeting, which is held up there on the new moon of each month. That's it for me. And Mark, if you would mind to take control and do your presentation.
Oh, that's a scary thing. So tonight, the presentation will be by myself and Noel, and it will be on COVID-19 and how it impacted the Astronomical Society of Victoria. So we'll just get our screen going. There we go. Whoa, pretty graphics. We'll make that full screen, shall we, Noel? That way, no one has to put up with looking at us. So yes, the idea of tonight's talk is what I guess the impact of COVID-19, how it changed how we did things with the ASV. We went from not being able to host our in-person meetings and our in-person events. So whether it was at the lodge or whether it was at the dark sky site or our public viewing nights on Princess Bridge in the city or at Wattle Park or wherever it might have been, all of a sudden we weren't able to do those things, and we had to come up with a way of still giving the community what they wanted. So to us, community events are important parts of our lives. They help us grow and build relationships. It's vital that we meet people, indulge ourselves into conversations that add value to our life. Public events allow this to occur. Without them, you may feel dull and lifeless and stuck in repetition of everyday life. And that's how I felt through lockdown. I know others may well have as well. And by doing these live streams, it allowed us to give back and give people something to do during lockdown in Melbourne in particular. So pre-COVID, we had the freedom to travel, obviously. We were able to see our family, friends. We could go away on holidays. We could go to the dark sky site. We could go to these public events. We could do everything we used to do as astronomers without issue. We were able to engage with the community and life was normal. But then lockdown hit, and I'm going to hand over to Noel to run through lockdown.
Yeah, lockdown, it was a funny thing. I'm coming from the Bendigo point of view, so it didn't really affect us initially the way that it did for most of the Melbourne members. But where we noticed some big differences was obviously not being able to get out to the dark sky site. Now, you may think, oh, it's fair enough, Bendigo's got pretty dark skies anyway, and that's true. But the big part about being in the ASV is the friendships that you have and the social evenings that that happen out at the dark sky site. So that was the biggest impact by far. I mean, some of our members were sort of a little bit wary about getting together socially because we didn't know what was going on really with the pandemic. But the biggest thing was, yeah, just missing that communion, I guess. It's a bit of an odd word, but I think that's an apt word for what we do out at Leon Mo. So yeah, that big change, and then that sort of got us, I guess, got the brain, the cogs in the brain going on what are we going to do.
So in March, obviously, Melbourne entered lockdown, Metro Melbourne in particular. The rest of Victoria was a little bit, it wasn't so bad, I guess, as things started to heat up. And we didn't really do too much as a society. We kind of sat back and thought, okay, well, what can we do to look after our members? And we started having discussions at our council meetings. And not a lot happened in March because I think at that stage, we kind of thought it was just going to be a couple of weeks of lockdown and then life would get back to normal. And then we got to April.
Yeah, something fairly easy for us to do was to pick up the rate that we were able to communicate out with our members. Sure enough, there's a lot we can do on social media, but certainly social media is not for everyone, and not all of our members use it. Although we've got quite a good range of offerings there, but creating an auxiliary Crux edition to distribute via email. It was a good way to engage with people and seek articles from them, and quite a lot of members were able to contribute in a lot of ways there. I even put in a couple of articles, and it was just really good to sort of read some experiences from others that wouldn't normally contribute to the full Crux magazine.
So from April, obviously, we went into May and things started looking a bit better. Lockdown started easing. Crux continued. Discussions were held about potentially reopening LNDSS, the dark sky site, and whether we would then start to being able to do events. And then something happened in June.
Yeah, things started to get, I guess, pretty frustrating. It's cold and it's dark. We're stuck in our homes, and there's planets out there in their glory. So we really started to get together with some strong ideas on doing some live streaming, and we did a few trials. A few of the astrophotographers and myself, and so we got together and did a few tests just to prove the technology to ourselves that we could actually put something together that might be worth watching anyway, that we thought so.
Right. So a little bit about Crux Extra. It did, you're right, Noel, it helped us. It gave us something when we were stuck at home. Like you're saying, I edited it. Had a lot of help from guys in the ASV to proofread it for me, but getting articles from people, putting them together, sending them out, getting the emails back from people who were thankful to have something extra to look forward to every week. At one stage, we did start putting them up on the public Facebook page, and I think we should probably put the rest of those ones up too, because they're not all up there. But that was a great thing for everybody to have as part of the society, something to look forward to every week. And then, as Noel said, we started talking about live streams. What about the events, live streams? Will they work? And my theory has always been, if you don't ask, you don't know. If you don't try it, you have to at least try it and see what happens. So July, obviously, we headed into lockdown, stage 3 in Melbourne. Crux continued, and that was, I think, our first proper live stream to not just members but the general public as well. And it was a talk by Phil Hart on the lunar eclipse, was it, Noel?
Yeah, yep. And he had a wonderful presentation with his journeys across the US. So yeah, that was a ripper.
And then we headed into August,
and things got pretty scary. I mean, the restrictions that most of our members, being Melbourne based, were under was pretty intense, to say the least there. And we thought we had to do something pretty special, so we got planning for something in September. Normally we'd have our big barbecue party up here at Leon Mo. And yeah, Mark got together with myself and a whole bunch of other people in the ASV, and yeah, we put together something pretty epic.
It certainly was, yeah. So that was the September barbecue, which, as you said, is normally at LMDSS, and it's normally a Saturday afternoon and a Saturday night. And I think September was sort of like the height of lockdown, and I think everyone was getting to their end of their tether. And so part of the decision was to go, okay, well, let's make it an actual star party. And it was an event weekend, and it started on the Friday night with what telescope to buy or what telescope not to buy, leading into some moon viewing and deep sky. And it went all through Saturday with a junior presentation, astrophotography, we had a Q&A panel in there as well. We did some radio astronomy. We had more deep sky. We did some solar viewing. We did everything, and we'd spread it over a whole weekend. And I think I spent more time in front of the screen on stream than I did sleeping or doing anything away from it, because sometimes I was going from one into another. But it was a lot of fun, and we got some very good feedback, and it kind of gave us the drive to push on and do some more live streams.
Yeah, it certainly was pretty full on, and it made a good way for something a bit more lighthearted in October when we had a bit of fun with the Halloween event. People might remember me as Uncle Fester. I think Mark had a well-placed axe in his head. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and we ran a competition to best dressed. That was great. Again, it was timed well. We had a good look at the moon. So that was a fun small event compared to what had just happened in September.
So, hang on a second, just before I go to that. So we've got two little 30-second snippets of the live streams that Noel has cut out for us to have a look at, just for, I guess, a little bit of memory's sake, from where we started with the live stream, which I think was done through Zoom, the very first live stream, and we quickly learnt that it was not going to be very good for what we were doing. So here's a little snippet of that. Whoops, it's gone too far.
So just caught the tail end there of Phil Hart's presentation, and for those that didn't see it, you want to have a look at track that down, because it's unreal. It's
on our YouTube. We might actually share that one on the Facebook page later on this evening for those who didn't get a chance to see it, those who weren't members back then. And then, as Noel said, we had a bit of fun with Halloween. So we can see there we've got me up there with the axe in my head. Noel's looking like Uncle Fester with his light globe. Perry was, I don't know, Perry was just had his Crescent Moon t-shirt on, and Andy got all dressed up with his Scream helmet, face mask, and even had a spider hiding in the background. So it was good fun. We all had fun doing that one. It was a whole lot of fun. We had a good clear night as well, and we gave away membership for the best dressed. And hopefully Wanda is still a member. I believe she is, and I haven't seen her at any of our events yet, but we haven't had many. So yeah, I'll just press play on that quickly. And I hope some of you have gotten dressed up. We do have a membership available for the best dressed person. There's a way to pop the photo in the comment section. I just realised, Noel, my name on that says 2020 feels like an axe to my head. And that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah.
So we got to November, Noel.
Yeah, now that was a lot of fun, because we got together with our pals in South Australia. No bias there, Adelaide born. So normally we'd be getting together for Vic South in person at Little Desert Lodge over at Nil, or near Nil, and we couldn't do that last year, so we did it online. And that was a lot of fun. Because they had some presentations with the Adelaide guys. There was Paul Hazy gave a talk on astrophotography. We had Joe Greta give a Sky for the Night. So yeah, it was a real good mix. And likewise, the South Australian folks got a good taste of the ASV. So that was really good.
So then December rolled around. We had some freedom finally. Things were starting to look up. We organised an event for the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, and I think we organised 3 events actually. Only one of them ended up working out of all 3, and that frustrated me because after being in lockdown and not being able to be around other people and share astronomy with them, we finally had a chance to do it, and then the weather went, nah, you're not doing it. We did get one good night. But I think on the Monday night of the conjunction, which was the best night for it, the weather wasn't looking good in Melbourne, and I was really keen for us to do a live stream and nagged Joe and Kim from ASSA over in Adelaide there. When we got them to, we got Kim to hook his telescope up, and we did a live stream, which I think is one of our best live streams we've done yet.
Yeah.
So,
something that Steve mentioned early on tonight was our fundraising for our All Abilities, and a lot of that fundraising we did through the online events, through seeking some donations, through some raffles that were running, and we saw January as a really good opportunity to do a membership drive. We had some brilliant prizes on offer, and we were able to attract over 150 new members that month through that drive. So that was a big win, and it really I think it's going to make us keep us honest this year, in that we owe those new members, and everyone that stuck through us through last year. We owe them a fair bit of exciting things to happen this year. So
we do have some more stuff coming up. So yeah, lockdown eased. Things are looking good. Feb hits. Valentine's Day. We thought we would do a Love Under the Stars, something that we'd definitely not done to the level that we planned on doing. We were going to have picnics, boutique platters, wine, a tour of the night sky, viewing through telescopes in the centre of Caulfield Racecourse. Limited tickets. We nearly sold every single one, and all of that money is going to our Pathways project. And then on the Friday, 2 days beforehand, we had a snap lockdown for 5 days, which meant there was a 48-hour period of, once again, the ASV needing to learn how to pivot in a lockdown and how to change direction and work out a solution, which we did. We worked out we tried our very best to get a hold of everybody. We did get a hold of everybody. A lot of the guests or attendees took up our offer of delivering their platters to them with their drinks and joining us live online. Unfortunately, not all of the platters got delivered. There was some issues that we had, and but we did do a live stream host, and I did see a comment before from Jessica asking if we're going to do another one like this. And Jessica, yes, we will do another Love Under the Stars, that's for sure, because the idea is brilliant. I love it. It's just a pity we couldn't get it to work with lockdown. But yeah, we did that. We came out of lockdown, and we learnt a lot about how to do live streaming ongoing. We're working on changes on doing new live streaming events from different angles, using different setups. We're trying to, where possible, we'd like to try and do some form of live streaming from some of our public events where internet allows us to. We can't do it from the LMDSS at the moment. We did try a couple of times over the Christmas period, but the internet up there is not great. So that's another learning curve we've had with our live streaming. Whoops. So this is just a little video, a little bit on the Saturn and Jupiter. Oh, it's jumped on me. This is just a little video on our Saturn and Jupiter conjunction. And I think at the moment it's one of our highest rating YouTube videos. It's up at about 2,500 views, which is significantly higher than what our views normally are. Welcome to our impromptu viewing of the Slate conjunction. Jupiter and Saturn. The last great conjunction is back in there. You can see there on the screen, you can see Jupiter and Saturn in the field of view there. That was very early on in the piece. We got the view much better after that. And then Love Under the Stars. There we go. Bit of fun. So upcoming event-wise, this is something that I've been pushing very hard with the society, is to try and do some more events for the general public as well as our members. Something that something I got out of last year was that one thing that I knew that I missed from lockdown was being around people who enjoyed the same sorts of things. So once again, in trying to raise some more money for our Pathways to the Planets, our All Abilities Astronomy project, we've got another karma keg happening next Wednesday night at the Grape and Grain in Moorabbin. There's still tickets available for that one, but it's essentially we're doing some live stacking inside on a projector using a telescope outside. We'll have a tour of the night sky using Stellarium. We're going to have an astronomy quiz, which Noel is going to put together. And we'll have a telescope that people can actually view through. We won't see any deep object stuff, but we'll see some of the brighter things. So that's still got some tickets available. We've got more public viewings. We've got one on the 23rd of April, which is not this Friday, but next Friday at Caulfield Reserve. That one's completely booked out. We had 250 tickets and they went in less than 2 days. And Noel, we have some ASV member events.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Although the Love Under the Stars events sort of didn't go quite as well as planned, and as you mentioned, it was a last-minute pivot there. The planning that went into that with the Caulfield Reserve folks really opened up some doors there for us. In that now we've got the knowledge and capability to be able to run quite a lot of events at that site. It's a fairly open site, in the heart of Melbourne there. So there's be a lot of members events in the pipeline coming up there. Now, when it comes to sort of the regional folks, we've also had to put things on hold up here. The area where we'd normally do a public viewing, it's not somewhere where we can do it in a COVID safe manner, but fortunately we've found another location in Bendigo that we can do that. So I'm looking forward to being able to open up the offer for members to come and actually do some viewing within Bendigo again. So we're planning on doing that fairly soon in the next month or so. So yeah, there's quite a lot starting to happen again now that we're on the other side of what was the last 18 months.
So we do have a lot, and we have quite a few things, as you said, Noel, coming up out towards our dark sky site. One of the ones that I've been working on, which I think is going to be wonderful if we can make it happen, is Dreamtime Under the Stars, which will be a special event that's going to showcase Indigenous astronomy. We've actually been speaking to the local Tongarang community about getting that going, and that works are in the pipeline to have an Indigenous astronomy event at our dark sky site. And also one that we tried to do last year and we nearly got it off the ground, and then that second lockdown hit, is Wine Under the Stars. Sip on wine under the stars, surrounded by the vineyards. Now, Noel, you've been to the place that we're looking at doing this at as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it's not that far from Leon Mail Dark Sky site. It's but there's one good thing there is that they've got beer and wine available readily, and comfortable accommodation. So it's a pretty good combination. You've got dark skies there, and it was so close to happening. We were all very disappointed then when it didn't go ahead, but now we'll have another shot at it. So it's going to be a pretty good night. So we just got to get some finer details nailed in on that one. But that's going to be one to look out for.
Okay, so then obviously we have public viewing events. More. So So I just saw a comment there, any likelihood of public member viewings in Melbourne's west. So that's something we need to consider, is doing some public viewing and some members viewings out on the other side of Melbourne. We're not all just east-based. We're not all up in the bush either. So yes, we will get more events going around in other areas of metropolitan Melbourne. I've got a lot of ideas that I haven't even thrown at Noel or Linda yet. But yeah, we learnt a lot from lockdown, learnt a lot about live streaming, what works, what doesn't work. And we've also learnt a lot and grown when it comes to hosting events and how to host events in astronomy. And so, and I think we've got a couple of questions there, Noel, before we move on to the next phase of our talk. Here we go. So Jessica wanted to know, is the telescope viewing in the Caulfield location, does it obstruct anything in the way by light pollution? What did you haven't been there, have you, Noel?
No, I've only seen photos and streams. So
okay, so viewing wise, it's actually not bad. The buildings don't get in the way. They're quite, because the oval is quite large, and then you've got the racetrack on the outside. So the viewing from Caulfield's pretty good. You can get things very low on the horizon. You can get a lot of the bright deep sky objects as well. And I think when we did the first night, we had the good conjunction. We had someone there with their astro. We had Neil there with his astrophotography equipment, and he was live stacking onto a projector, and the views that he was getting were quite amazing, even from Caulfield Racecourse. So yes, it's nothing really obstructing there at the moment, which is good. Now, I guess we should move to the next part, Noel, which is, I think probably
a lot of people are going to be pumped about this next one.
So we thought we'd do this in two parts for everybody. The first part was sort of how we had dealt with the pandemic and the lockdown. And the second part's more of a personal journey that Noel has had a big hand in with me, trying to find something to do when you're stuck at home. They can't see your hand, Noel.
It's big. Yeah.
Trying to find something to do when you're stuck at home with two kids who schooling from home and you need a bit of sanity. So when life gives you lemons, take up astrophotography. And that's pretty much what I did with the help of some guys in the ASV. They guided me along the way, the path of what I should or shouldn't do. And essentially, what is astrophotography? Well, it's exactly what you can see right there. It is literally a phone mounted to an eyepiece on a telescope. And I had been using the 8-inch Dobsonian that I've got until this Meade got fixed. And then I got a $10 eyepiece from eBay. And you'll see what the results are shortly. So literally my equipment is a Meade LX90 Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. It's an 8-inch. We call it the coffee grinder. It's pretty loud, isn't it, Noel? You can hear it from Bendigo.
Yeah, we know when you're at the dark sky site.
Yeah, everybody knows when I'm there. I've got my Huawei, I can never say that, P30 Lite, and a $10 eBay phone holder, and I've got a 24mm Teleview Panoptic eyepiece. And then I just literally take some images and I stack them and I process them. And this is some of what I get. This is some of what I get from when I do that. So this is what is this? Orion Nebula. This is 63 5-second images at ISO 500 taken from suburban Melbourne. Now, to get these images, I use a program called Deep Sky Camera app. And that app allows my phone to take raw data image, which means I can put it into the lovely astrophotography processing apps and stack it and process it. So it's 63 5-second images from Bayside, Melbourne, taken on the 26th of March. So that's from a suburban backyard using a phone attached to a telescope. Then we've got Orion Nebula again. Now the difference here is this was taken from the dark sky site. So darker skies, less light pollution, more detail in the nebula. And once again, this is an image taken with my phone from our dark sky site. So you don't need very fancy equipment. And I can hear all the astrophotographers going, no. I think Noel likes this one, don't you, Noel? Why do you like this image?
Well, you've got quite a lot of detail there around the Keyhole Nebula, and when we spoke about this recently, I sort of had to find out a bit more about what's going on with your smartphone. And something that I found out that I thought was quite interesting, and you may just think, oh, yeah, duh, but that phone sensor isn't RGB like a lot of color one-shot cameras are. You know, your DSLRs or your astronomy cameras. It's actually red, yellow, yellow, blue Bayer matrix on there. So what's going on there is by having two yellow photo sites is that sensor's more sensitive to red and green. Red and green make yellow. So you're actually getting a lot of red signal coming through across those three photo sites on that sensor. So there's something a bit special about that. And for a comparison, that's the sensor in that camera is only about 7.5 by 5.5 approximately millimeters, compared to say 19 by 13 in a astronomical camera like the ASI 294, which is a fairly common one-shot color camera. So, and you're looking at pixels which are 1 micron compared to around 4.5 or so. So it's a tiny little sensor, but it's got some special bits about it that make it kind of cool, and it can capture nice nebulosity. So it's awesome.
I'm loving it. I am. So yeah, this is 33 20-second images of Eta Carina from our dark sky site. Once again, just using the coffee grinder, the phone, and ISO 1600 for that one. And then we've got 47 Tucane. So once again, so this one gets the colors quite well and the stars quite sharp as well. So once again, it's 16 20-second images, ISO 1600, dark sky site again. This is also one that with a phone and a tracking telescope that you can take from suburban Melbourne as well. So all of these images that are from the dark sky site, I can take all of these images from Melbourne using my equipment. Tarantula Nebula from dark sky site. It was pretty low. It was pretty hazy that night. I think I can do better. I know I can do better with this one. But once again, it's just a matter of testing. What I've found is that the dark sky site, the ISO of 1600 works best. Exposure lengths, if I go longer than 20 seconds with the equipment I've got, I start to get star trailing, which you don't want, because then the program says, no, I don't like that image. I won't allow that to be stacked. So it's a matter of practice makes perfect, really, when it's astrophotography, which is the same with astrophotography, isn't it? No, I nearly called you Neil. Noel. So practice makes perfect. That one on the left there you can see, that's from Melbourne. That's one of the first Keyhole Nebula images I took with the phone. I think that's only about 10 images stacked and processed. So the more you work on your game, the better your images are going to be. And that's something I've definitely learned over the last sort of 6 months doing this. Every set of data I take gets better and better and better because I learn something new, a new technique to do. Most recently, one of the guys in the Astro section, Lee, gave me a Bluetooth clicker. Not that exciting for most people, but for me, it is, because every time I have to touch the phone to take a photo, it wobbles the phone just that tiny little bit. And having the clicker means I don't have to go anywhere near the phone. The other one, like Noel was saying, phones are very different to astrophotography cameras. And the one thing I've learned is our president was telling me that I need to up my ISO, up your ISO, up your ISO. But every time I did that, there was light pollution getting in everywhere. So I've had to muck around with the settings. The settings are very different to what you would have with an astrophotography camera, because you don't have it firmly attached without any way of light sneaking in. So just testing your phone. So if you're using the same equipment, your settings are obviously going to be different depending where the skies are, but you muck around and work with what's best for you. I've taken so much data that I've ended up just having to throw away, which is okay. Light pollution. So yeah, light pollution, beware the light pollution from suburban areas will impact your work, but it doesn't stop you, as you've seen, from producing images that will blow your mind. Using raw data. So the program I got, as I said, it's in beta mode. It's not a professional program yet, but it's going into pro mode. It can take a maximum of 30-second exposures up to ISO 1600 at the moment, but the Pro version, when it comes out, will be able to go 400 seconds up to ISO 3200. So I'm looking forward to that coming out. But that's a free app on Google Play. It's on Android and Apple. It's free. Takes a little bit of tweaking and mucking around with to get used to how it works. That image that you can see just to the left there, that's Jewel Box taken. So that's our Deep Sky Director's favourite object, Jewel Box. Just wait for my phone to beep now where he tells me off. That's it's taken from suburban Melbourne again, from my backyard. And I use Astro Pixel processor. Now, it's $190 for the year, but my son does proper astrophotography. So we got the program for him, and it allows 3 licenses. So he's got it and I've got it. So really it becomes cost effective if there's more than one of you doing this. That's for sure. The more data you get, the better, or is it? Now, this is one I learnt, the more data in a light polluted area you get, it isn't better. My 100 stack image of Eta Carina from Melbourne is better than my 180 stack image from Eta Carina in Melbourne. The more light pollution you have and the more images you stack with a phone camera, I've found that the worse it gets and the harder it is to get a decent image. And stacking and processing is important. So for processing, I use Photoshop. Now, if you can see to the left there, there's a little green oval, looks like an eye with a dot in the middle. That's my favorite object in the night sky, as Noel will know. That's Ghost of Jupiter. That's not a stacked image. That is from Melbourne in my backyard, single click image of Ghost of Jupiter that I processed in Photoshop. So that's just one. I tried to take a series of images and stack it, but because I couldn't get enough stars, the program couldn't place everything together and it just looked like a smudge on the screen. Okay, that's the end of it, Neil. Noel, I did it. I called you, Neil. That's the end of our talk.
I noticed someone's asked there about iPhone apps. Now, before you woke up and joined the smart crew and got an Android, you were an iSheep. So I
was an iSheep. Yes, hang on. Where's Sean's comment? So Sean, yes, I was an iSheep. Deep Sky cameras and Android only. I think the new version is going to be Apple based as well. I think in that case, the best bet you've got, unfortunately, is to shell out for a damn expensive iPhone, iPhone 11 or something like that, which do, I believe, I'm not sure, Noel, I believe they have the capability of doing raw data.
I believe so. I'm just having a quick look. Looks like there are a couple of third-party apps for iOS. There's Camera Plus 2 and Pro Camera. I'm just having. I've
tried those, and they're not easy. They're not very good. Yeah. I needed a new phone. My other one was broken, and this cost me $350. This my P30, and I use it to make phone calls and take photos with. So. Small price to pay, really, compared to what some Astro cameras can be worth, and then you need the equipment to go with them as well. And Clint, well, yes, that is Ghost of Jupiter. That's exactly what that is. So, yeah. Now, where did that last slide? We've come to the end of our presentation, but never fear, if you want to hear me talk about the same thing again, I'll be presenting in Adelaide for the ASSA's general meeting in May. Got to try and work out how I'm going to get across there. But yes, I think we've answered everybody's questions, Steve. We'll bring Steve back in.
Okay, thanks, Mark. That was very illuminating, if I may use that word.
It was good fun.
For people that are out there, if you're new members, for these special events and for our Astronomy for the People events, and if you are inexperienced, we're always looking for marshals to help out and to control crowds and collect gold coins. So if you're looking like you want to fill in a night, please volunteer and let Steve Thurm know. He's the he will be the section director for that. All right, Mark, That's it. I think we can now move on to our next item. That would be Sky for the month.
That would be Perry. Good evening, Perry. You're muted, Perry. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Of course. Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. And that was a fabulous presentation of how you can do astronomy and astrophotography with very little equipment and little cost, I suppose. Well, comparatively, at least, anyway.
It is. Well, it was a second-hand telescope as well, so it's not even a brand new telescope. So it really is low cost.
There you go. Couple of things to talk about before we get to Sky for the Night. I'd like to mention the Starlinks satellites. They caused a little bit of commotion over the last couple of days with the public that aren't aware of them. But what it is Elon Musk's SpaceX company every couple of weeks is launching about 60 satellites for internet communications. They're about the size of a table, and they stay together. They're tethered, I believe, and they move through the sky a little bit like a string of pearls, and which kind of reminds me a little bit, and Steve would remember this, Comet Shoemaker Levy 9, Steve, where they all appeared to line up and move through space together. So you can see them naked eye without any specialized equipment. If you go to a website called heavens-above.com, put in your location. It doesn't have to be particularly exact. If you're in Melbourne or suburbs, you can just put in Melbourne. If you're in Bendigo, just put in Bendigo. It doesn't have to be your street or suburb or anything. That will be enough. And it will bring up the details of when and what time and direction and brightness of all the satellites that are visible at that particular evening or morning. So it's not just for the Starlink constellation of satellites, but you can use this website also for the International Space Station and find out when that's going past as well. Having said all that, I've got to come clean here and say that as astronomers, we absolutely hate these things because they add to light pollution. They ruin astrophotographs. I don't know whether any of Steve's or Noel's or Mark's has been ruined yet by some of these. And furthermore, they interfere with observations of the cosmos. So astronomers don't like them. And currently the engineers at SpaceX are experimenting with coatings that make them less reflective, and also sunshades that make them less reflective as well. I haven't seen a picture of what one of those sunshades might be like, but I imagine it's a bit like an umbrella and somebody's out there holding it in space over this satellite. Maybe not. So even though we hate them, you should see them at least once. So check out the website and go out and have a look at them and then forget about them. Unfortunately, the plan is for SpaceX to put up something like about 30,000 of these things, which means there's about 3,000 naked eye stars that you can see at any one time. Well, there'll be 10 times that amount in SpaceX satellites in our skies. Take that however you like, but I don't see it as a good thing. And should any collisions occur, it could get quite dangerous up there for any people going into space as well. But have a look at them so at least you know what they look like, and you can tell people that we're not being invaded by Martians, as some of them thought recently. But it's Earth-based technology in space. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is, in fact, two things. One is the Lyrid meteor shower. Some people call it the Lyrids, but it is Lyrid because it's from the constellation of Lyra the Lyre. Unfortunately for us in the southern hemisphere, this is not particularly exciting because the zenithal hourly rate under the best conditions is only a couple of meteors per hour. To me, that does not warrant getting up early in the morning to go out and have a look at them unless you're absolutely desperate or you're coming home from one of Mark's late night pub gigs and you haven't got to bed yet. Any other reason? Not worth getting out to look at the Lyrids, no matter what you read on the internet. The other thing to be wary of is the fact that a lot of information on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram comes from America and the Northern Hemisphere, and many of those things that they suggest you should go out and look at do not pan out locally for our Eastern Hemisphere and also south of the equator. So always check with the locals to see whether there will be something worth getting up for or getting out for to have a look at. Finally, the last thing I'll mention before we have a look at the sky that will be worth getting out for to have a look, unfortunately occurs on the night of the ASV's council meeting on Wednesday, the 28th of May. So perhaps this is a good reason for looking at another date, whether it be the day after or the week before or the week after for the council meeting, because it's not often we get a total eclipse of the moon. And I dare say we'll probably be on Princess Bridge or somewhere like that, sharing the universe with the public on that particular evening. So mark it in your diary and look forward to it. It's only about 5 weeks away now. And if you've never seen one, you're in for a very special treat. If you've seen one before, well, you know how fabulous they are. Could be another photo opportunity, Mark, for you and your iPhone. No, you don't have an iPhone, you're Android.
Who has an iPhone these days? It's old technology now.
All right, let's have a look at the sky. And I had a special request from our president last time to have a look for some Messier objects, because it was at the time of the Messier Star Party, and during March and April, this is probably the best time to have a look at Messier objects. I'm not sure what's going on here. Is my screen still up?
Yes, your screen is up. You're ready to rock. While I've got you, Perry, we've been asked what the date of that eclipse was again.
It's the last Wednesday of May, which I believe is the 28th.
I'll confirm that. I'll confirm that for you.
Look, there will be a lot of news about that from the ASV and from other people online, and also in the press, the dailies, radio, television. So you shouldn't miss it.
If it's the Wednesday, Perry, it's the 26th of May.
26th.
If it's a Wednesday, yes.
I believe it is the Wednesday. I'll take it back then, Mark. Thanks for correcting me. Now, I don't seem to be able to get any movement on my screen, Mark. Nothing.
You will need to go into your program. You might be looking at the StreamYard screen, and you need to look at your program screen.
Okay. Let's see. Can't get out of the bugger, so all right.
You're in there now. There you go.
Yep, got it. Thank you for that tip. So let's go to sunset, which is occurring earlier and earlier these days. Every day it's just a little bit earlier. Today it was 5:54 p.m. And I want to draw your attention down here to the sun as it sets. So we've got a very thin crescent moon, or we did have this evening. And right here is Venus. Don't go looking for Venus at the moment because it's too dangerously close to the sun. But watch what happens over the course of the next few weeks and months. And in fact, this year we may call a Venus year because it's going to be prominent, and you can see what's happening through May. It's rising higher. The moon went past on the 12th of June, very near, and through the rest of the winter, it's going to be climbing higher and higher. Let's advance the time a little bit more to make it darker. Now the days. So by the time we get to the September equinox, it's up very, very high, and it'll still be with us through till the Starbecue. So it'll be an evening object for most of this year, and through the winter months, even though it'll be cold, Venus will be keeping us company. So let's now go to now, or sunset again, and expand. All right. So the evening grows a little bit darker, and right here we have probably the easiest of all the Messier objects to see, and that is the Pleiades M45. A bit further over in the northwestern sky, or between northwest and north, which is north of northwest, through here we have some 3 Messier objects in the constellation Auriga, and it's the open clusters M38 M36 and M37 here. If we darken the sky a little bit more by advancing the time some more, we can perhaps go in for a closer look. M38 right there. A nice little cluster, and a bit higher above it is M36. We center that and zoom in a little bit. A touch different M36 to M38 because it has some brighter stars dispersed through some of the other fainter ones. And a bit further up, we have M37. By the way, for those of you that are new to astronomy or to the ASV, the M stands for Messier, and all of these objects are from his catalogue of about 110 objects that he observed from the mid to late 1700s from his observatory.
Who is he, Perry? Who is he?
Sorry?
Who is he?
Messier, Charles
Yes,
Messier, a French observer who worked for the French Navy, and his observatory was on top of the Hôtel de Cluny, not far from the center of Paris, and he fastidiously went out every night looking for comets, because that was where the big money was in those days. You got notoriety, you got a stipend from the king sometimes, so there was money. There was even groupies, my God. But so looking for comets was a pastime that many observers pursued during the 1700s. However, Messier kept running into these other objects while searching for comets that looked a little bit like comets, but they did not move through the sky. Comets as though they were just beginning to shine. So not comets with great tails behind them, but comets at the beginning of their apparition. So in order to keep track of these objects that were not comets, he put them all in a catalogue, and it really was a catalogue of nuisance value objects so that he would not mistake them for comets in future searches. But since then, this list of objects has really become the premier list for new deep sky observers because it contains some of the easiest deep sky objects to observe with small telescopes. In fact, with binoculars, you can see a great number of them. Of course, you don't see them in the detail that, excuse me, that Mark's images, say, of the Orion Nebula were like, but you do get to spot them so that you can at least know where they are and confirm their positions on charts. But a small telescope of 6 inches will show most of them, and an 8-inch telescope will show even the faintest. And there is the Messier 100 Club, which Paul Gardner may tell you more about at the Deep Sky section, which goes hunting for these particular objects. The idea being that if you see most of these as a beginner, by the time you get to see all 100 that are visible from the latitude of Victoria, then you're no longer a beginner. You've built your skills and you've improved your observing. So it's a great way to get into it. Now here we have Castor and Pollux, Gemini, the twins, and right where this Starlinks satellite is going through is the cluster M35, which is another one dispersed through the Milky Way that Messier discovered. And this is one of the easier open clusters in Messier's catalogue, and it's a good one to begin at this time of year, and you don't have to stay out very late to find it. Early evening is fine, so you can get to bed early, or you can do a little bit of observing each night, say on Saturday from say 6:30 until about 7:30, until the footy starts, and you can go back inside and watch some of the footy. And after the footy finishes, you can go back out and have a look at some more of these. That's if you're a lazy observer. If you're more dedicated, well, you'd stay out there and get the scores on your phone. Now, a little bit higher up, excuse me, is Orion, Betelgeuse here, Rigel there, and there are two Messier objects in Orion. One of them is M78 right there, but it's not the most well-known one. However, it has a very ghostly quality to it and worth seeking out. There it is, M78. So not far from the belt of Orion, about here. So there's the belt stars of Orion. If you just go this way a little bit, you run into it. And here, did I say two? There's three Messier objects in Orion. The other two are very, very close together, and it's sometimes easy not to see the two of them as being two separate objects. By the way, these are not Messier objects. The Christmas Tree Nebula or Flame Nebula, and this, the Horsehead, and the Running Man Nebula here, they are not Messier objects, and in fact, don't be misled by the program I'm using here, which is Starry Night. They are not easily visible. But this is the Orion Nebula M42, and this little section here is M43. It kind of looks a bit like a comma back to front. So they're quite easy, those two, but in the same vicinity, a little bit higher up here, we have Lepus, the hare, and right there is a great little globular cluster, M79. So it looks like Messier may have found that after he found M78 over here, just near the belt of Orion. Yes, and he went to M79, and let's go in and have a look at it. A very nice little globular cluster, nowhere near as big as Omega Centauri or 47 Tucanae in the southern sky, but a nice little object nevertheless, and a 6 or 8 inch telescope will show you this. Keep in mind that everything looks heaps better from the dark sky site than what it does from Melbourne. Having an 8-inch telescope at the dark sky site gives you the same sort of views that a 16-inch telescope might give you from the city. So it almost like doubles what you can see. Here is, well, it's M41, another lovely open cluster. Doesn't look a lot like the Beehive to me, but some people have given it that name. Let's go in for a closer look. What there is some lovely coloured stars in there. You have to look through your telescope with quite a bit of attention to see them to advantage, but they are there nevertheless. Not far from here, down in this area, is M50 in Monoceros, which is the unicorn, and mono, of course, means one or single, and keros in the Greek means the horn, so Monoceros, the unicorn. And this is a cluster which is sometimes overlooked because there are so many other beautiful things in this vicinity, but I urge you to have a look at it in Monoceros as well. Let's zoom out of there and pick out a couple of other beautiful clusters. In this area, we have M47 and M46, and you get 3 objects for the price of 2 here, because there are 2 open clusters. The brighter one here, which its brighter stars tend to resemble Orion a little bit, is quite a bit easier to spot than this fainter one, which is M46. However, M46 has a second object in there, and it's this lovely little planetary nebula right there. So when you do look at M46, make sure that you spot, or you try to look for, that planetary nebula as well. Higher up, near the hindquarters of the dog, we have M93, which is another open cluster. And these galactic clusters are generally all found through the Milky Way. So sometimes it's worthwhile getting your binoculars, sitting in the chair whilst you're having a cup of tea or a coffee. Don't drink while you're observing for many reasons, but the same as smoking when you're observing, it constricts the blood vessels and allows less blood to flow to the eyes, so you're not seeing things as well as what you do if you stay away from smoking and drinking while you're observing. Lower down now, if we get closer to the horizon, near Gemini, we've got right in here Cancer and the Beehive cluster. Now, the Beehive cluster to me looks a little bit like the beak of a bird. Sort of, can you see it there? Sort of triangular shape. And you can spot it with naked eye from our dark sky site, and easily with binoculars from the city, and a beautiful object to have a look at. How are we going?
Is that the jewel box? Is that Perry?
I'm sorry?
Was that jewel box, was it?
No, the
No?
Beehive,
Oh,
M44.
You've probably got about another 15, I think.
15? My God.
Yeah. Being kind to you tonight.
Well, thank you. Let's have a look. From the Beehive, if we go a little bit further up from the horizon, we have M67, which is another globular cluster. And even though most of the globular clusters are in the southern sky and not too far from the center of our galaxy near Sagittarius, this and the one in Lepus are a little bit unusual that they're that far removed from the galactic center, but beautiful objects nevertheless. And here it is. So there's two objects in Cancer. Unfortunately, Cancer is one of the faintest of the constellations. Very difficult to see with naked eye, even from a dark sky site, and almost nigh on impossible from the light polluted suburbs of Melbourne, because its stars are no brighter than 4th magnitude. Let's zoom out a little bit. And we've got the upside down question mark here, or sickle of Leo. And in Leo, we have 5 Messier objects, and they're all very deep sky, about maybe 30 million light years away. These are galaxies. So through here in this area, we've got, let's center M105. By the way, that's Regulus, the brightest star in the constellation of Leo, and it's also 1st magnitude, so easy to find. Let's bring it down a little bit and zoom in a bit more, because these 3 Messier galaxies are all within close proximity of each other, in the sky at least. There we go, 38 million light years for these two, M95 and 96, and a little bit closer, 25 million light years for M105. By the way, it's quite a challenge to see your first galaxy with a small telescope, because sometimes all that you can see at first glance is the core, because it looks quite star-like, and you may have to use averted vision to see the rest of the galaxy. So this beautiful barred spiral up here.
Perry, did you want to explain to the viewers what averted vision is?
For sure, Mark.
Might help them a little bit, that's all.
Sure. Averted vision is a term that astronomers use to refer to observing without looking directly at the object that is your main concern. For example, if you're trying to see the finest of detail and very faint haze in this galaxy, don't look directly at it. Focus, say here, look in this position, but keep your mind on here. And what you will discover is that you can see more detail, especially of the fainter parts of a galaxy or nebulosity. And the reason for that is that you're using the rods around the outside of your retina, which are best suited for faint light, rather than the cones, which are in the center of your retina, and they're great for color and observing objects which are very bright. But for the fainter things, try looking away from it. I did read one time in Sky and Telescope magazine many years ago that you should, if, for example, you're using your right eye, try and put the object that you're looking at in the opposite position to where the optic nerve enters the eye. And that would be around this position here, so that this is more closer to your nose. Does that make sense, Mark? Did you understand that? Because
I did, yes, yeah.
The optic nerve enters the eye is totally blind.
I guess yeah. So you kind of just look away from the object slightly. You put your focus to the left or to the right, depending upon which eye you're using, so that you get that light from the outside of the galaxy popping in.
Yeah. And not just galaxies, this also works for all sorts of different deep space objects, globular clusters, nebulosity, whether it be in diffuse nebulae like Eta Carinae or the Orion Nebula, but also works on objects like planetary nebulae like the Ghost of Jupiter in Hydra, or the blue planetary near Crux. All of them give a much more pleasing view when you can glean more detail if you use averted vision. So let's zoom out of these galaxies, which are all, as I said, within about 1.5 degrees of each other, and find the other 2 galaxies in Leo. There's another one of these Starlinks. They're everywhere, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got the upside down sickle or question mark, or you could even imagine it as a baseball cap with the peak here and Regulus there, Algebra here, a magnificent double star, by the way. And back here we have Denebola, which is the tail of the lion. And of course, we're seeing the lion upside down from the southern hemisphere. So don't forget to turn your chart whenever you're looking for these things, especially if it's a chart from the northern hemisphere. Turn it upside down to reflect our view. And in the middle there, between these 2 stars, which make up the back leg of Leo, we have the Leo trio. And that is composed of M65 and M66, and also another galaxy. I think its NGC number is 2836. Is that correct, Steve? I think it might be. And it's in about... Oh, that's all right. It's in approximately this position here, but these 2 spirals are a little bit brighter than it, and it didn't make the cut for the Messier catalogue. Beautiful galaxies, and again, the best views are from our dark sky site up at Heathcote, and the suggestion of going up there to Ladies Pass at the next Deep Sky section meeting is a good one.
Highly recommend it. It's, by the way, Perry, it's NGC 3628.
3628. I had the numbers back to front. Sorry about that.
Don't get the quadrilla if they're in the wrong order.
Yeah, fair enough. A little bit too much Caulfield racetrack there, you think? Getting a bit further towards Vendimeatrix here, Gamma Virginis, and some of the other stars in Virgo that we have, Porrima, etc., is a chock-a-block field full of galaxies. The largest ones, M86 and M87, but all around them is part of the Virgo and Coma Berenices cluster. So let's have a look at some of these in a bit more detail. Let's center it on M86. All right, so all of these are in the Messier catalogue, which means they're bright enough to be seen by a 6-inch. M98, M99, I'll probably miss some, M100, over this way, M91, M90, M60, M58, right here is M84, and up here is M49, amongst others. So a whole bunch of galaxies in this part of the sky, and I might finish it off there, Mark, because I can't show you any other field that's got as many galaxies from the Messier catalogue in such a small area.
It's a good one, isn't it? It's a good one to finish on.
Yes, thank you for your attention, everybody, and I'll hand you back to Mark or Steve.
To Steve.
Okay.
So Steve, take over.
Thanks, Perry. Yeah, Perry's absolutely correct. It's a very busy area there. I don't like going there because you get lost very, very quickly. I only have one announcement to make before we close the meeting. Mark's putting a graphic up on the screen for the Karma Keg. If people are interested in craft lager, please feel free to go along for that event. All proceeds from that event go to the All Abilities Observatory. The next meeting will be our annual general meeting. It's going to be on the 12th of May. We are still at this stage unsure if it is going to be streamed or whether it's going to be at a venue. Our normal venue, the Herbarium, we've been trying to get permission to go there, but restrictions for meeting halls and such mean that we can't get very many in those halls. And RBG, who run the Herbarium, have refused to, at this point, give a yes or a no to that. We have looked at other venues, and the secretary and the previous secretary have looked around, and they still can't find anything either. So we'll let you know whether it's going to be streamed or if it's going to be in person as soon as we know. So that's it for this meeting, and I look forward to seeing you at the AGM. Thank you, Mark.
See you later.
Good night, everyone.